Just a quick disclosure to share in conjunction with this podcast. Each of us are speaking to our personal experiences and do not consider ourselves experts and cannot offer medical, therapy, financial, or legal advice. We represent a wide range of experience on the autism spectrum and will always honor each perspective that is brought to our discussions. Our experiences, opinions, and perspectives are all unique and different and will be celebrated. Thank you so much for listening and connecting with us. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Navigating Adult Autism. My name is Mary. I'm here with Cynthia, Dawn, Elizabeth, Tara, Heather, and Kara. This week's topic is religion and church, but we have a little new addition to our podcast, and we are starting out with navigating news. So what's new in navigating news is we are announcing Heather's retirement from Mercy. So our own Heather Woodring has retired and is staying at home with her beautiful son Zachary to spend more time with him. Right, Heather?
Yes.
When was your last day?
It was December 21st.
So we have a little surprise for Heather. What you don't see is balloons and a plant.
That's awesome.
And we are very happy for her. And because we are very happy for Heather, her son Zachary, remember, is nonverbal or profound autism. And she's worked very hard to be able to stay home with him.
I love this hat you just put on me.
Yeah, cute little hat. That's
pictures for Instagram.
Yes. Maybe we'll post that. That would be
that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's staying home with her son, and that's just an important milestone.
It is a milestone.
So how's it going?
It's kind of been a whirlwind. It's just been 3 weeks.
Yeah, we just threw her off guard here because she didn't know this was coming.
Yeah.
So
it's been a whirlwind, but I think I'm going to be good with it. The thing about it is I had mixed emotions just because it's one of those milestone things that when you have a kid that's diagnosed, you don't ever want to necessarily wind up where we're at, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So there was mixed emotions going into it, but just so grateful that, Michael was able to do what he needed to do, and he's worked hard for 26 years to make sure that I can now stay home with Zachary. So we're just excited about that. I'm excited about him having the time, and I feel like he's pretty happy about it.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
So he likes stay home mama.
That's precious.
Is that what he says?
He says stay home mama.
Stay home mama.
Oh. And now we say stay home mama, and then Michael says, he starts saying every day, and then Zachary says every day. It's like, that's a lot of days.
That's cute. And don't forget to follow your page on Facebook, which is Everyday Adventures.
Everyday Adventures with Zachary on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah.
Yep.
I appreciate the celebration, ladies.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We love you. So thank
love
you.
the hat. Okay.
And next in navigating news, we do have some other news. Okay, Elizabeth, you want to share what's going on in Springfield, Missouri?
Absolutely. The Arc of the Ozarks has opened the new Arc Autism and Neurodevelopmental Clinic Center here in Springfield, open in January. We have our ribbon cutting on February 9th. The clinic is going to cover everything from diagnostics, every therapy, OT, PT, speech, ABA, feeding, and more. We have a psychology department, psychiatry, and a great big piece of family advocacy there. And we are so excited and cannot wait to serve families, not just serve families, but we're really looking at reaching the greater community and helping families to connect with who they need to connect with, even outside the walls of our center.
Right. Oh, that's
awesome.
great.
Awesome.
That's great
Awesome.
for Springfield. We're excited for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So jumping into tonight's topic, like I mentioned earlier, before we got into our navigating news, our new segment that we're very excited about, we're talking about religion, church, what we all think about it, if we attend, what went wrong, what went right. That's a big on our podcast in general, is what went wrong, what went right. So who wants to start jumping in there about religion or the topic?
I think so. It's Elizabeth here.
Yes.
And I'm not ready to really jump right in, but I just wanted to share one of the things that has bothered me over the years.
Sure.
When we start talking about this topic is often I hear families shopping for a church depending on the service that they can provide for their loved one, instead of looking at what are their personal beliefs. Do they, is this where they want to be? Are they giving up a religion, a practice that they've done their whole lives and thought they would go through this life and eternity, and then they're faced with having to look for a place that will welcome their child, their young adult, their older adult, and that is so sad to me.
Yeah, excellent point. Mm-hmm. That's true. So you've had experience with people that you know that have done that, or
I just hear it in the community.
Hear it too.
I hear it in the community, and there's a lot of talk, and you look and see people on Facebook asking, but a lot of it's kind of in person where people, just really they're looking and ask, hey, do you know who has a room, who has this, who has that, instead of looking at their personal beliefs,
right,
and letting that guide their faith, whatever that faith is.
Right.
They first have to look at a place that they feel welcome, that they feel that their child, when I say child, I'm also talking about our children. It doesn't matter if they're 31, 32, they're still our children.
Right.
That is the number one thing, instead of pairing that with what do I believe personally? What is my faith?
Yes.
And so it just, you just hear, you hear it, and I don't know. It's just always made me really sad.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So how many of us do attend church right now and take our children? So the hands are being raised, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 out of 7 attend church. Dawn, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I attend church. My son, JR, does not.
Okay.
So my hand went up for me.
Okay. Right.
So if you're giving me the mic.
Sure.
Listening to the support episode that we did, and I felt a bit guilty. I didn't even mention church. So I need to disclose, I'm an Assemblies of God pastor's kid. I was in church 9 months before I was born. My children were in church 9 months before they were born. I mean, this is the faith of my fathers. So not that the Assemblies of God have the best theology or anything along that line. That is what I'm familiar with, what I have personally chosen to embrace. So I did reach out to the churches that I have attended, so nobody gets back with me on whether or not I can mention the names. So I'm going to say unnamed church number 1,
okay,
which is the church that JR was born into. Things went okay during preschool because everybody's a little squirrely during preschool, right? And it stood out, yes. And I'm sure there were some eyebrows raised because you want to know, where does bad parenting end and a diagnosis take over? Because JR's in that spot where, he doesn't look disabled. There's a few things. His cognitive disability isn't readily available, So when he does some things that were a little strange, did your mama bring you up right? Type of thing. It got to the point where, especially after the preschool, and he went into kindergarten, and he needs to sit still during children's church, that's when some of the problems began. And nobody at unnamed church number 1 basically wanted to come and talk to me. My father had been on staff at that church. I had a lot of years logged in at that church. And so when finally they approached me, and I guess I shouldn't have made them approach me. I should have been proactive asking them, but I wasn't. Okay, so they approached me, and it was like, well, how hard can this be? I can solve this, So I actually went and observed some of the things that were going on. And then I began to realize, you know what? We're taxing resources. I want to go to church. There's another church down the road that's still in my denomination that has the room. So here I am fighting the school for more inclusion. I want to go to JR's home school, but in church, I'm taking the exact opposite approach. And I need to also mention unnamed church number 1, the senior pastor had a son on the autism spectrum. When we made the decision to change churches, he actually brought us in, my husband and I. And, we have nothing against you. We love the people. I can tell you ways that people have supported us from that church. But it was just, I did it, changed churches because of me, because I didn't want to be in a church service where they were constantly calling me out or, it was so nice to go to a place where here he is, and we will see you in about an hour and a half. And I knew that I would not be called or contacted, or nobody would raise those eyebrows because there was a little bit of knowledge about, what autism was.
Well, that's huge.
That is huge.
But, in retrospect, should I have stuck it out? And, I don't know.
I don't
I
think
made a
so. You do the
decision
best for
and-
what was right for you at the time and for you and JR. I don't think you should regret that decision.
As he grew older, I remember one, taking him into the youth group, and I'm there as sort of a checker in so that I can keep an eye on him at the same time. And he would disappear. He would go into the men's bathroom and not come out. And I remember saying to the youth pastor's wife, "It seems like he's a ghost in here. Nobody talks to him." She put her hands on her hip and said, "And why do you think that is, Dawn?" And, I did, because he's different and doesn't talk, and because he has autism? Is that really? JR chooses not to go to church now. We don't force him. He has been church shopping on his own. One incident that sticks out in my mind, because he's a non-driver, that means that, I'm sorry, JR, I'm going to my church, but I will get you someplace if you can deal with the delays, and
Right.
Okay. So he goes to a church. It's in Willard. I did go to their website, but somehow we got there just in the middle of the first service. So it was a 2-service church. And so he walks in. He's a lone white male who's coming in mid-service and going in and sitting down. And my little radar goes off. You need to tell somebody. Shooter drills and, strange people coming in a service like that. And so...
You thought it looked suspicious.
Yeah. And it was like, man, they could very easily do that. So I guess my piece of advice is churches are a support. It's a support to me. I'm going to go to church. I wish my son could or wanted to. But it's hard, And I think if I could bring in the senior pastor from unnamed church number 1, I think he would have some stories to tell too. Not because that church wasn't supportive. It's hard, and you're asking for volunteers to do this. I recently went to the Springfield Business Journal's Business Expo. There was one church, Protestant church, that was exhibiting. So when it came to my turn, as I'm going down, doing my little autism thing, I tell him what I'm doing in that. And all of a sudden, he's not making eye contact with me. I wonder what experiences he's had with an autism family. Maybe he's felt that burden of, we couldn't meet that need. And I'll tell you what, when we had that exit interview with the pastor of unnamed church number 1, and the children's pastor came in, that children's pastor had been at my wedding. He had worked closely with my father, and he was in tears. And I think he was feeling that crush of, they're leaving this church and people that they know and people that they love them because we couldn't be supportive.
Why couldn't they be supportive?
I think because the church is run on a volunteer basis, so they have...
Find more volunteers.
Well, there's a lot of church volunteers, though. I will say there's for every aspect of the church. There's a lot of church volunteers, but I think the knowledge is power, and I don't think they really knew how to handle it. Personally, that's what I think with a lot of churches.
Reach out and find knowledge.
See, to me, I'm thinking like, so we're of a Catholic faith. We're the Catholic faith. We're Catholics. That's what we are. Not sure why I went through that whole explanation. Anyway, but they don't have, I mean, they're not known for having like programs for special education or whatever. But there's a point where I thought either I have to do it because there's no one else is connected and needs the resources. So do I have the mental capacity and the energy to do that? Just like Don was saying, you're working with the school. You're already working with all that stuff. It is a lot. How many programs can you start as an autism mom?
Right. You get tired of that, don't you?
Yes. You just don't have.
You're like, do I have to start this again?
Yeah.
Do I have to start it here?
Yeah. I mean, there were times for sure that I thought when Zachary was younger, like there was no place for him to go as far as like a Sunday school class or something, right? Until there was an adult class. Adult, like I would say teens. It was actually. There was one class that we took him to for a year in high school. It was an hour away. And it was the concept behind it. Again, a parent started it. The concept behind it was very nice, but it was the problem we had with that. And we did go for a full year. I took Zachary. It wasn't individualized enough for him to really get anything out of it, right? So it was togetherness, and it was at one of the Catholic churches. And I certainly appreciated the resource and the parents doing it. But it wasn't really moving us along, in regard to like
path
spiritual.
Right. Yeah. It was nice for him to go, but I can see maybe that's where you were at with church number 1.
Yeah.
Right.
My Assemblies of God is here local here, their headquarters. So
which is
why can't, it's a huge denomination. So is the Catholic Church.
Yes. Yeah.
There are, so why can't there be trainings or at the headquarters have somebody that specializes, employ a parent that specializes in autism to create these programs to make it all inclusive for everybody?
They're definitely needed.
Why not?
Yeah. Well,
you're right.
Shelley Allen has started the STEPS ministry. So she's in Arkansas now. So she has a program. She goes and trains. I've gone in and done different trainings. Of course, my first one before I was very experienced kind of failed. They loved it. Best training they ever said they ever had, and they really got it. But then the next Sunday I walk in and every kid in the class that moves gets handed a toy. And I was like, no, you totally missed it. Let's try this again. But that was my first training. But they grabbed onto something that was easy and quick. So as Kara's saying, make it somebody that really knows what they're doing. Really make it a significant training, not just a mom going in and talking for an hour. Mm-hmm. And then all the kids end up having these huge fidgets. And then it's really disruptive. Mm-hmm. And I know she does her program. Years and years ago, we did a conference, actually. Do you remember that, Dawn? Oh, it was years. Do you remember that one, Kara? Okay.
I remember that too.
Yeah. We
conference
did that
for what?
It was
churches?
Yeah, it
Yes.
was at Brandenburg. It was at the hotel.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Remember when we brought in different pastors came in and spoke?
And it was really well attended. So, sometimes, maybe some of it is just the knowledge and just, they just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And they're stuck with, well, this is how we perceive, a Sunday school or a service should look. But, those perceptions too, because when my kids were younger, I would always take them out because I thought they were just too disruptive. And then one time we were sitting in the foyer and somebody goes, "Oh, you're here. We love sitting behind your family. You guys are so entertaining." And they said, "Well, we fight with this other family to be able to be the ones that sit behind you because we just love how you work with your kids and how, they're
that's a great
active
tribute, Elizabeth.
and they're, they're not necessarily quiet." But I kind of, I got
a little disruptive, but we like them.
But I got to the point where I was being more loud and disruptive than them by telling them, sit down.
Right.
Do this, do that. So I kind of loosened up a little bit. But it completely changed my perspective of what was actually happening because I thought those peering eyes were, oh man, she's in over her head or can't she keep them quiet? I was completely wrong.
I do think sometimes they don't know what to say, so they're watching from afar. And they may admire what you're doing or whatever, or how you're acting or whatever the case may be, but you never know that. And there's enough negativity. I know for us, like Zachary obviously grew up in the Catholic Church, and then there was just a point where most of the Mass, Michael was out in the car with him. And that was when it was like, you know what? I mean, Michael was frustrated too. It's like, I don't come to church to sit in the car.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, you know, I agreed. And, you know, so there was a big span of time that we couldn't take him. We just could not function through a Sunday morning Mass. There's just too many people. There's too many babies. And the noises they make, like, we just can't.
It's overstimulating.
Yeah. And Zachary had, at one time, he jumped in the baptismal font. I think that was on Mother's Day. We have some highlights that were fun. And it was like,
Did you post a picture?
you know, I did not take a picture that day. I'll tell you what, I wasn't real thrilled with what was occurring. But
It makes a great story though now.
it's a great story now and I can laugh, but I will say that I did not know how to handle. I didn't like the feeling I got. I wasn't
A lot of anxiety.
I wasn't getting anything out of Mass because I was so worried about, is he going to be quiet every second? Is he going to be whatever every second? Is he going to jump in the baptismal font? That kind of stuff, that I lost my connection that I had. And that was, in the end, we went, and trust me, guilt was in the air. Like, here's something I do want to say, like, just straight out. No, you know, the parents, we have the burden of that. So if I want to be in church, but I'm not in church, trust me, you don't need to like make me try to feel guilty about that. I'm already guilty enough.
Right.
And I want to be there and experience that. And so that is not helpful. So I would just tell anyone out there listening that has a family member or whatever, and they're struggling with the church situation and they really want to go. I mean, if their intent is to go and they just can't, that's just how it is sometimes. And I think maybe that's when grace should come into play.
That's right.
So, but I will say this, that for us, it was a goal for the last 5 years, let's say, to get Zachary back to Mass. I had tried to schedule time with a particular priest, and he was always very busy, so that didn't work out. And so I waited. We got another priest at our church. He's actually the one that married us and baptized Zachary as a baby, and I love him. He's awesome. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to shot in the dark here, and I'm going to ask for an appointment. And so hadn't seen him for years, obviously. He was at another church. And so I brought this box that I had bought full of stuff to teach a kid with autism about like confession and things. I think that's what it was, the one I had. Because in the Catholic Church, there's all these, you know, different things that you go through as a child. They're milestones that you meet.
Sacraments.
Sacraments, yes. And because Zachary didn't have, you know, like a Sunday school, they call it PSR, but there was no class he could really attend. He never went through, like he was baptized, right? But he didn't go through all the other stuff. And so it was just awful. I mean, me and Michael both, you know. And so I got this appointment, and I just remember the weight was lifted. The priest he said, Heather, what is this box? And I'm like, well, I bought this from this website, and it's supposed to be to teach. And he said, just get rid of the box, Heather. Get rid of the box. He said, Zachary doesn't need the box. And I was like, okay. And he said, listen, I said, you know, we felt a ton of guilt. There was tears, you know, there might be tears right now. And he just basically said, not everyone fits the mold. Not everyone fits the mold of Sunday morning. And he said, and I'll tell you, you're not special. There's lots of people, even outside of like, you know, Zachary's situation, that can't handle a Sunday Mass. He said, that's okay. So he said, let's make a plan. And he said, Wednesday night, we have a very small Mass on Wednesday nights that you could try. And if that doesn't work, he said, we'll just bring communion to you. We'll just do a home visit. And I was like,
Yeah.
So after all those years of like struggle and guilt coming from all directions, I just thought, this is what church is supposed to be about. This is what it's supposed to be about. So
That's right.
So since then, we've been going on Wednesdays, and it's so quiet. They don't even have music on Wednesdays. It's a very small It's almost like a daily mass, so it lasts 36 minutes. I know
Yay.
because so we don't even have to make it an hour. We just have to make it 36 minutes. And Zachary is quiet. Like Zachary scripts constantly, even while someone's talking to him, right?
So explain scripts for those that don't know.
Scripting. So he's talking to himself 95% of the time. He's reciting a movie, a VeggieTales episode.
Kind of like talking to himself.
Right. They're talking to themselves. They're not engaged with others. He's within himself. And he does that
It's
almost
not
all the time.
Conversational. It's just
It's
repetition.
not conversational, yes. You have to figure out what's he talking about. And so that's normally what he does. When we started and we tried the Wednesday, the kid didn't make a sound, not one sound. He just looks around and looks, at the crucifix and looks at all. And he loves Father Kiefer. I'm just going to say it.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you that.
It's Father Kiefer.
He's
The
great.
kid loves Father Kiefer. And so we've been going and Zachary will give him a hug. He doesn't even give me a hug. Like, he doesn't come out and give his mama a hug. But he gave Father Kiefer a hug. So anyway, and so he just said, let's work on communion. I was like, well, don't we need this or that? And he's like, no, Heather, we don't. No, this is not, you're not on the regular path. He said, we're on your own special path. And so,
I love that so much.
yeah.
I
So
tell you.
even eating the communion wafer, we couldn't get him to eat it because Zachary eats 4 things. And I said, I'm just not sure it's even possible. And he said, well, we'll just try. And he gave us unconsecrated hosts to practice with. And we've done that with his OT. Like I said, this has been an emotional, guilt-ridden journey that finally I thought, it's not about what other people think. They do not know our journey. They do not walk what we're walking. And so I'm just going to lead the charge here and do what Father Kiefer tells us to do. And it's been great. So,
That's awesome.
It's wonderful.
but for years it wasn't.
Right.
I just want to point that out, that for years, like Dawn saying and Elizabeth and all that, it did not go that well. And we
Yeah.
did the best we could, but
Well, you're doing great. That's an admirable. I've always thought that. That your Wednesday evening church was just awesome. That's great.
we like
And
it.
kudos to Father Kiefer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way kudos.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. That's wonderful.
And he's right. I mean, that own path, Nathan just in the last month got asked to work in the library at church. He's got a key with a lanyard,
Oh,
and
awesome.
he goes in and he can straighten and hand out materials, because to sit in a class, I mean, people would count. We would have through the hallway, it was kind of a circular thing, and people would start counting our laps, because it was just hard to say. He would sit during the service, our sacrament meeting, and then after that during class time, as he got older, and the kid ones he was okay with, but as he grew, and he just wanted to walk and move, and we did that, so he's got that calling now. So
So do all your kids attend
That's
church?
cool.
You guys go every Sunday, like your whole family? Like, is that
well,
just?
the girls are older, so they're
Okay.
not at home,
Okay.
but yeah,
but that's
but-
your routine.
yeah, but a lot of times we don't make it, and we are always late. Always. We just think, okay, we got this much time, and by the time Nathan's up and doing things, and sometimes he's had a number of seizures in the bathtub right before
Wow.
church, so that ends that, and sometimes he can't make it. So a lot of times my husband and my youngest will go,
Mhm.
and Chase goes, and he has he does well, and it is one part that we really didn't hit on is the social part of church too.
Mhm.
And that's, the kids are very nice, never cruel, never mean, but is there really a social connection? There's not. And I miss that. I wish there was, because that is would be a great safe place to have those experiences. And I know our church, they tried and thought that it would come naturally, and because they've had other people with disabilities and that it's worked with them, but autism is a little different, because there is such a heavy social component there that they, when there wasn't the response and the feedback to the other kids. And I wish we had done a little more, more training, and we didn't, because I just felt, I have to teach these other kids how to love my son.
I know.
So, and I
That
should
hurts.
have, I should have probably stood up more, but they were, always nice and included, and stuff, but there wasn't the friendships that developed that I had hoped that
Yeah.
would.
I'd have the same experience. I'm sorry, you're going to say something. I feel the same way. Like you try, and I too am Catholic, and my son went through all the sacraments. But yeah, I went to like the overnight confirmation camp that they held at a parish, and just hoping for those relationships to keep building, and went through every sacrament, and they never really did. He never really made a friend there. But he does attend church. He likes church. I mean, he even has told me for years, I really like going to church, Mom. It really makes me feel good when I come out. And I said, well, good. That's what it's supposed to do, and so that's good. I mean, I will say when he made his confirmation, there is one funny story. I may have shared it personally with you guys, but I think at Mass, for confirmation, you had to go up and sign a book on the altar. And so they would, you had to attend Mass at the 10 o'clock Mass, and they'd be asked to stand, and they had to go sign their name. Just like every other Sunday, I was a nervous wreck about everything. We worry about everything. I thought, oh, my land, he has to go up there, and I'm praying that he does okay. So, of course, he's up at the altar, and every little child's signing their name, and he's signing, and he's signing, and he's signing, and he's signing. And I'm going, and now listen, this is at Mass, up on the altar, and I'm always sit in the last row, because you never know when you have to leave.
Oh, you always sit in the back.
Always sit in the back. At least
Yeah.
the last 3 rows, you're always in the back.
Yes.
You just never know when you have to grab your child.
Yeah.
Even to this day.
Right.
And so he's signing and signing. I'm like, oh God, what is happening? And so, the priest kind of looks around, and I'm like, I can't go up and grab him off the altar. Like, what? And he's signing. I mean, it is such a long time. And the other friends are kind of like stretching, and they're wondering. And so by the time he gets back, I'm like, good job, buddy. And I said, so, what kind of took you so long up there? You seem, well, I decided that I should try and write cursive. So he's never written cursive in his life, ever, ever, ever. You try it on Sunday up on the altar. And so I said, okay. And I was like, so later I did have a discussion with him, like, please don't try anything new, like when we're doing something new. Like, so that was a whole nother, talk. But even to this day, he'll still say, just the other day we went to Mass, which we go to Catholic Campus Ministry a lot, which is on the Missouri State campus because it's quiet.
I have heard
less
that was
crowded.
recommended to us a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do love it there. Or I go to Immaculate Conception. But every now and then, like if he sees a group of the college kids, joining for Mass, he'll say, remember when you made me go to that overnight camp? Why did you make me? I mean, just he remembers all the negative. I'm like, cut it. Like, stop. We'll talk about it later. But you really have to over-explain. Like, this is just part of life. It's my job as a parent to try and include you and try and give you experiences. And not all of them are going to be great. Sorry. But we do attend Mass, and I love it. He likes it. I think he's welcomed. I mean, I think Father Kiefer, was he at Immaculate Conception for a while?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was really good with my son. But at the church bell, when he asked Father if he could go, this is after Christmas Eve Mass, he asked if he could go ring the church bells up on the altar, and I was mortified. I'm like, no one touches the bells on the altar. And Father Kiefer was like, of course you can. Go do it.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, you're a great priest. Up there, bang, bang. I'm like, I mean, he was, I don't know, high school? I don't know how old he was, but I always felt welcomed with the priests. But should there be more classes? Yes, and more volunteers. But I do know that other churches do have classes. Immaculate Conception had one for a while for special adults. So I think they try, but I think it's just the volunteers and the training, and it just kind of gets away with them. I think, what's the Baptist church? Second Baptist had, I think, a class. Remember John Marshall? I think when he was there, they had a class for them. So
I remember at Jana Marsh's funeral.
Yes.
So Jana was an autism mom and
my friend. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And at her funeral, I remember telling her father-in-law and his family, thank you very much for not hiding Samuel, because I would hear from other people who attended Second Baptist that John Marshall had mentioned his grandson from the pulpit and things along that line, and just not hiding it.
Right.
for me was huge.
Right. Can I tell you one more funny story? And I can't believe I'm going to share this on the air. However, with sitting on the churches and the pews, you were saying you're a family. So one Sunday, my son would go without me if I couldn't make it, or which I usually made it unless I didn't feel well. And so he would want to go anyway and be dropped off because it makes him feel good, and which is the whole point. So there was a big family that always sat in the last row. Evidently, my son sat right in front of them. So after Mass, and they have all girls, so they have like 5 girls, mom and dad are there. And I guess when it was over, I only know this because my husband had to call me from the truck to tell me what happened at after Mass. They said, "Hi, how are you?" Because we got to know him by this time. "Where's your mom? Your mom's not here. You're here by yourself." "Yeah, she had to stay home. She has her period really bad." So Dean called me my husband called me from the truck, and he's laughing. I'm like, "What is going on?" Like, it's morning, right? Sunday morning, like at 11:20 after 10 o'clock Mass. I'm like, he goes, "Oh, hey, so you need to get ready for this one. You gotta get ready for this one." So that was fun showing up this following Sunday. Like,
Oh, that's funny.
I'm back. But, which is, instigated another conversation. We don't share everything. We don't share everything. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
But yeah, speaking of sharing, one time my son reached into my purse and pulled out a sanitary pad and is holding it up until I notice him.
Yes.
But they do those funny things, and now we can laugh and nurture.
It's always funnier when it happens at church.
Yeah. Oh, well, Chase, we had our primary program in it, and I haven't mentioned I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but we had our primary program. All the kids are up there. Chase is up there too. We're all included, and he starts digging in his pockets. So he takes, he's got some toys and he's playing, and he takes out a medal and puts it around his neck. So he's got this big medal. So I'm like, okay. And then he pulls out his kazoo.
Oh, no.
No, it wasn't the kazoo. It was the harmonica. Yes,
my goodness.
it was the harmonica. And he played the harmonica during the songs.
There you go.
Oh, my God.
And then during the speakers, but
He was participating.
He was
in his way.
participating. So, but also, Don, you mentioned, about the marshals, but, we've got enabled ministries.
Yeah, thank you for
Can
mentioning that.
you?
Yeah, enabled. I guess it started in the Southern Missouri District of the Assemblies of God. And so, basically it is more of a church service on some of their meetings, but they also have picnics and times where they go to Incredible Pizza, as a group and do things along that line. And so my son hasn't been regularly participating in Enabled either.
And where is that through? Which church? A certain church, or just?
They're meeting at Life 360's International Campus, and I don't have the address. So Google, you can find everything on Google, right? So Enabled to Serve is the official name.
Okay.
And,
We can put that on our Facebook page.
Yes.
or
Yes.
you can Google it.
And I shared something today on Facebook that my mother-in-law told me. I don't know if you guys saw it or not. That Ridgecrest Baptist Church has a new group that they started, and I have the phone number of the lady that is starting it. I'm going to give her a call, but it's called Remarkable Women, and it's for moms or female caregivers to a child or children with a disability. Mm-hmm. There's a brunch and fellowship Saturday, January 20th. I don't know when this podcast is going to air. It might be past already, but I know they're going to meet monthly. So I thought that was kind of So there's a church.
Is Kayla the person heading?
So
up?
Kayla has. Yeah, she posted it, but I think it's an Amber Ennis. I think my mother-in-law knows. I think she's in choir with her.
Mm-hmm.
That's whose number I have that I was going to call about it. But yeah, I saw that you were friends with her. You guys all were.
She used to babysit for Eric.
Oh, okay.
When he was young. Yeah, because she was with Faircrow.
Oh, okay.
And we grew up Methodist. And I, being older parents of his child that was high functioning, I didn't have any expectations about going to church because we didn't get the diagnosis early at all. So we started taking him very young to Sunday school and church, and I would just be present to be there when he had to be pulled out. But then nobody, he'd have to come out sometimes in the church. We always sat in the very back row. And still to this day, I sit in the back. Or
Me
people
too.
go, "Why do you always sit in the back?" I said, "I just love the back." But and actually, so Eric still does go to church there though. Now that he's gotten married, because his wife sings in the choir. But like when he was younger, though, I forced him to go to church actually, and I actually forced him to do all the camps and everything, and I would be there to. I would be a sponsor, so I'd have to
or
be
volunteer,
there. Yeah,
of course. Yes.
I had to be present always, so
Right.
that's how I got him there. But
And he still
was
attends.
worth it.
That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
There were years he didn't go, but now he's back in it and he loves it. So I'm glad.
Yeah. My son does too. It makes him, I mean, that's the whole point, is
Yeah.
making him feel good and having faith in God and knowing there's someone else and that you go to. And I remember him praying. I don't know how many years it went by. I said, "You say your prayers at night?" "Yes." I said, "Well, what do you say?" And he was saying the same prayers every night, like the same 5. I guess I didn't teach him that he could divert. And he would always pray for our neighbor, because I'm praying for Miss Jean behind us. You told me to say a prayer for her. And I said, "Well, okay, I told you to pray for her like 6 years ago for Miss Jean." But that just like our autism adults, you tell them, "Pray for Miss Jean." Okay, well, he did it every night. And so, which was very sweet.
How's Miss Jean doing?
I was gonna say.
Miss Jean has since passed.
Uh-oh.
She was lived behind us and just a wonderful woman. But yeah, I mean, he still prays, and I like that he loves that church makes him feel good, and it's part of his routine. And so, what other advice would we have for anybody with church?
Well, one thing, question I kind of have for those that, that don't actively attend church, how do you talk about like just faith or meditation or, peace? Do you have some conversations, because not everybody
For like a
attends
higher
church.
being.
Not even possibly, but not even that. Just at like peace, because there's meditation, there's different things to give them that feeling that the son who should not be named says he feels good about himself. Do you have
Right.
or just you're conscious and kind of Jiminy Cricket kind of is there questions or anything?
Kara and I are looking at each other. Well, I
So
mean,
we're the two that don't go to church.
I did.
I mean,
we went to church for years, and then we went to the home church, and we had lots of experiences like that. And then I decided that we would just let our children decide what they want to do. I say that we don't go to church, but Zion was very active in Young Life, Ozark Young
Kelsey
Life.
too.
Yeah.
Kelsey did Young Life too.
Yeah.
And went to camp in Colorado.
Yep.
Young Life. Mhm.
So Zion got a lot of his social, I would say that was his main friend group in high school. And that's, I sort of left his spiritual well-being to Ozark Young Life. And they were very wonderful. And one of the guys who is the adult leader is just a good friend of ours. And he took Zion under his wing, and they had some volunteers from Evangel that were the college leaders, and they took Zion under their wing, and took him out all the time, and they were just great. And Zion, I know, misses that a lot, because when he left high school, he lost that, and we've still tried to get.
Did he age out a bit? Or?
Yeah, they age out.
Okay.
There is a college ministry, I think, but we haven't connected with.
There was
that.
also a Young Life Capernaum, and it was for young adults
remember
that have
seeing that.
disabilities. I don't think that it's going on anymore. Jenny, I can't remember her last name, but she ran it, and they would meet, I think, once a week. If I remember right. And they would go every Thursday night. And that's what Kelsey was involved in.
Yeah, that would be great.
I'll find out to see if it's still going
Yeah.
on. Yeah, because it is it's a great social aspect for our kids. Actually, Dr. Robert Grant, when Kelsey was going, her counselor, he had recommended, we weren't going to a church. Kelsey was having issues socially. And he goes, guys, have you really thought about finding a church and getting her involved in the youth groups? And we're like, okay, we'll do that. And our experiences, we went to a big church on the north side. And went in, and right before church, some man approached us. I'll try to make this short, but some man approached us and he said, "Hey, we need some volunteers. Would you and your husband like to volunteer?" And we're like, "This is like the first time we've been here. We don't know anybody." We're like, "Okay, Dr. Grant said we should come." And so he goes, "Okay, so whenever I call for the couples to come up, then have you guys come up, and you guys come on up over and look at that woman over there and go meet her over there." And we're like, "Okay, our daughter's here. Will she be okay by herself?" And Kelsey goes, "Well, yeah." And so she sat there, and then he called for the volunteers. And so we went over there. They ended up taking us up on stage, and they did a little contest, and Roger ended up doing the Elvis dance. And we'd never been there before at all. And so they did like a clapping competition, and then we came on back down and went into Kelsey, and Kelsey was so embarrassed.
You were socializing, though.
So after the service was over, the main pastor come up, and he knew that we were new, and he shook our hands, and he goes, "So you haven't been coming here long?" "No, this is the first time." And he goes, "You guys got up on stage?" And so anyway, we explained to him, that Kelsey has high functioning autism and cerebral palsy, and her counselor recommended. He goes, "Well, here, let me take you." So he went over to the youth pastor and took us over to a room and said, "Here, here is so-and-so." And he goes, "Well, very nice meeting you guys. Thanks for going on stage." And so we met with, just talked very briefly with the youth minister and told him what we would like, Kelsey involved in. And he goes, "Oh, yeah." He goes, "Well, let's exchange numbers." And I gave him our phone number, and he gave me his. And I gave it a few days, and I called him because what he wanted to do is possibly come to the house and meet her one-on-one. And I called, never returned a phone call.
Oh.
And I called, and we never went back. We never went back after that, because I got to thinking, you know what? If he's not willing to make that extra effort to even call me back, I'm not sure if I want Kelsey in that youth group.
Yeah.
And so we never really tried again after that. Any other religious experience for her? Kelsey did Camp Barnabas.
Yeah, our kids
every year.
Yeah.
She did Camp
My son
Barnabas,
did
and they
years,
had
1 year.
service. They had services, and she got a lot of hers. Come to find out, we picked her up after I think she was in middle school, freshman in high school. And, they all have one-on-one campers, counselors that are with them. And when we picked her up, she goes, she told Kelsey, she goes, "Do you want to tell her? You want to tell your parents what you did?" And she was like, "I don't know." And Kelsey got baptized.
Oh,
She got baptized at, and she was kind of quiet about it and nervous about it, didn't know how we would react.
Mhm.
And so I was like, "Kelsey, that's great. If that's something that you believed in, and that's felt you at that time, that's what you felt you needed to do." And and then we did the Young Life, Capernaum, and she went to Colorado on a trip there. And of course, us nervous moms, we followed the bus out there and stayed in Colorado. We had our own little vacation, because we were just so nervous. Our kids had never gone out of state.
That's a big deal.
And so she did a week, and then we followed the bus back.
That's great.
When we were done. But that was probably, Roger was raised Catholic. His mom even worked like at the Mirror, the magazine
Oh, I
Mirror,
didn't know
and
that.
very involved. And I think several of Roger's siblings went to the Catholic schools, and we always had the guilt too from the family. But it was just trying to find the right church for her, and we just never really found that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I do want to add one thing. When Eric was in college, he wanted to find a college group of a church, and so someone said, "There's only one we know of, and it's at the downtown church. This is at Walnut and Jefferson." And so he started going. Of course, he couldn't. I tried to drive him in every Wednesday night, and I'd sit out in the parking lot.
Mhm.
But he really liked it, and then he actually went to New York with them to do a mission.
That's awesome.
And then that's how I found the church that I'm at now. It's just a downtown church, and he's back. He's still at Kingsway, and I transferred to the downtown.
Oh, good.
It does make me sad though, because I was raised in the church, and the California church, which is a little bit more less strict than Missouri. When I came to because I went to a Christian school, I came and went to Evangel and graduated from Evangel, and I couldn't believe some of the differences.
Mhm.
So, but I miss that for my kids. But it's just a change of life as Jason and I grow. But I miss that. I wish my kids had that. It's just we've tried, and it's just like, Zion's sitting right here. He's our new intern, by the way. So he's
Welcome to
waving.
the podcast,
So
Zion.
I'm going to talk about him right now. He usually slept through the service. So we tried the venues, which is a great church, and they were so kind. And Rob, the youth leader, was so wonderful. But it just didn't work out. So, but I know I miss that for my kids, but we just haven't found it. So,
Okay.
And I do remember that my son also went to my mother-in-law's church. She's Baptist, who goes to Ridgecrest now, which is why I made that post earlier. But she used to go to South Haven, and the youth pastor there was a neighbor, and he was really great. So even though we're Catholic, on Wednesday nights, he would go to South Haven Baptist Church for their youth because he was welcomed there. I forgot about that group until you guys were talking. That was a wonderful group for him. He socialized. Of course, he talked to the adults mainly because he, stuck with them. But yeah, thanks to my mother-in-law for that. So that was good. But did anything ever really stick or make friendships out of him? Not really. But listen, he has faith. He knows God, and he knows that, we need our faith. I don't know what I would do without it, honestly. So I think I've passed that on to him, and he knows that it makes him feel good and that there's an answer and that there's another, that God is important in our lives. It has to be. So,
Speaking of faith and belief, what about your young adults, or as they were kids and you had them going to church? How did they understand? Because they can't see God. Did you have issues with your young adult or your young kid understanding?
I don't think anything different than when I was growing up in there. Explained it the same way, honestly.
Because they're very concrete. Some of them are
Yes.
just very concrete,
Yes.
and they don't understand.
Yeah. Chase really struggled with that. So, and in our faith, baptism happens at 8, and he was 16, and he had missionaries come out, and they played games, and they'd try to explain things to him, and he just didn't understand. But when it came time for him to make that decision, he only needed to have a certain level of faith. He didn't have to have the faith of a 16-year-old that understood every piece. But yeah, the understanding, and the missionaries were great. They'd come and play games with them, and then they'd have a little lesson. But each week they tried harder and did more visuals and more hands-on, and really had to break it down to those, just some basic things. And I really don't know what he understands, but he always asks to say prayers. And Nathan, before he lost his language, he'd start to say a prayer, and then he'd break into the pledge. It was really cute.
That's cute.
Loved that.
I love that.
But so Nathan really, doesn't. I don't know what understanding he has. I don't think there's a lot there, but I think it's just at a different level than what we understand.
Well,
so
I think,
it was hard.
Sorry to interrupt you there. I was saying that my son wanted to go find out, so he started reading the Bible, like children's stories. And then he was just floored about the Romans and how they crucified Jesus. I mean, he was livid. He would start quoting, "Do you know what they did?" And so, because he needed that knowledge to find out what was this about. Then when he would look at the crucifix differently, that's why we had to leave St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, because it was too big, the crucifix. I thought he really did pass out one Sunday. I need to go where there's a crucifix smaller. And so, because it would make him sad to look at it that the Romans did that. I mean, it was a whole thing. I mean, he can quote, even now, that one of his favorite movies, and my husband's, or the 10 Commandments, that movie. And so sometimes, I guess it's our age, we'll forget, like if my husband and I just comment on it, like, what was that about? My son will go, "Oh my gosh, it means," And so sometimes I'm surprised. I didn't know he knew that much about it. But overall, I'm glad God is in his life. So we're going to wrap it up talking about religion and faith. So thank you for listening. And you can find us, Tara, on our social media, right? And wonderful website.
Yeah, so you can listen on Apple and Spotify or on our website, navigatingadultautism.com. We also have Facebook and Instagram pages, Navigating Adult Autism Podcast, and you can email us at moms@navigatingadultautism.com.
And thank you to Zion for being our intern tonight. He's waving and shaking his head yes.
He's doing the soundboard.
Good job.
Yes. Thank you, Zion. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Goodbye.